topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Well, glad you could join us. Welcome. Bill Martinez here, fresh and independent, just the way you like to hear from us. We're not, controlled by any media empire to tell us how we're supposed to report. We are in pursuit of the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but. We're going to be talking, of course, about Iran and all that's going on. We're going to give you a military viewpoint. We're going to give you what's happening in Israel with a live report from Alex Traiman. And then we're going to wrap things up with what is the future of Iran all about, with someone who supports a democratic Iran, not nuclear, and a mission that will change the face of the Middle East altogether. And it's already rolling. Thank you very much, Donald Trump and the U.S. military forces. To open us up, we're going to start with retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Bob Maginnis, who graduated from the U.S. Military Academy, the Naval Postgraduate School, the Command and General Staff College, Defense Language School, and the Army War College's strategy course. He's an Airborne-Ranger infantry officer with service in 4 infantry divisions on 3 continents. Colonel, welcome to the show. Good to have you with us, sir.
I'm glad to be with you, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Well, from the military perspective and all that's been going on, I mean, there's a lot to be said about precision thought, precision planning gets you precision command. And so far, that's what seems to be taking place here.
Yeah, no doubt. If you watched Pete Hegseth and General Kane this morning, you got a real sense that this was incredibly well orchestrated, precision to say the least. Not that different, quite frankly, than what you saw in January in the takedown of Maduro down in Venezuela. This, of course, is far more difficult because of the location in the world that it is. And of course, you had to orchestrate not just one carrier group, but a couple carrier groups, hundreds of aircraft, thousands of people on the ground, and a whole host of allies that sometimes are rather suspect about their allegiance. And so, that having been said, the intelligence just was perfect, evidently, caught Khomeini and his leadership at breakfast in daylight, and they took care of them. And then, of course, since that time, we've seen many hundreds, if not thousands, of targets that have been hit. A lot of different types of munitions fired from the ground, the air, and from the sea, and they're landing and destroying much of the security infrastructure of Iran. So at this point, of course, the Iranians have retaliated against Israel, against Kuwait, UAE, and others in the Gulf, and antagonized them. So, it's just bringing more allies to our side. Finally, the Brits and some of the Europeans decided they wanted to be part of the game rather than, trying to turn thumbs down on what we're trying to accomplish. So, I would argue that, President Trump is getting much of what he wants at this point. He indicated this morning that he was surprised that things are going as well and as quickly. He made it very clear the mission is threefold, as did Pete Hegseth, and that is, no more missiles, no more nuclear program, and stop with the proxies across the world. Of course, the Hezbollah has been active against the Israelis in Lebanon, and so forth. Now, the question's always been, and you're beginning to hear more of this, what about the day after? Who's going to take over Iran? And certainly it's not likely at this point that U.S. is going to have boots on the ground. What we're expecting and would like to see is, people like Pahlavi, who is the crown prince that's never really lived there, or perhaps the National Council of Resistance for Iran, which is an offshoot of a variety of groups that are now in Paris and in the Balkans, but claim that they can run the country. Organically, we don't see a lot, but perhaps some of those leaders are in jail, which hopefully will be released, and something will evolve here before long.
Well, the key in all this is being able to neutralize the IRG, right?
Yeah, the IRGC is the key. They have the economic levers, the military levers. They control the actual military. They're kind of a step above the regular military of Iran. And then, of course, you have the Baji, which are really the internal police that are aligned with the Ayatollah. President Trump has suggested that we're getting contacts with people that are waving the white flag. I hope that's true, and they're willing to collaborate and cooperate with a new leadership. These details have got to be worked out before I think we really move forward. But clearly, the campaign will continue, as the president says, 4 to 5 weeks, perhaps.
Well, we'll have to see. You got to think there's a lot of pressure. The IRGC basically are mercenaries. Iran's run out of money. They've been running out of money. They don't have a lot of. They're not exporting a lot of oil for obvious reasons now, and so it doesn't seem like China and Russia is quick to run to their aid, unless I'm missing something here.
No, of course, the Russians were doing a little exercise, outside the Strait of Hormuz a week ago, but they've only provided a tepid response, much the same with the Chinese. Chinese, of course, are very need the Iranian oil to keep their economy going. Russia can only provide so much, and of course, we've already cut their lifeline from Venezuela, and so. President Xi is in a tough place trying to figure out, but the statements they released were rather tepid. So I don't think that anybody's going to rush to help the Iranians. And it looks as if the Iranian regime is on the outs, that what we need is something organic to start to form up, unless there's another plan and we just haven't heard about it.
Well, what does it say about Iran? Iran has been, relying on Russian military assets in terms of weaponry and that, and it just seems to have failed them. And of course, the superpower that America has been displaying here is overwhelming. And I got to imagine this is quite the statement that is being seen in Moscow and Beijing.
Well, it is. The Russian S-300s didn't apparently do the Iranians any good in knocking down any of our aircraft. And of course, we did a pretty good job of preparing the battlefield, counter air defense and electronic warfare. We did all the cyber work. All of that comes as a prelude to an actual kinetic attack. And so, that did happen. The Russians, of course, go to school on us, as do the Chinese. They watch us well. And they know the technology. We're using some new technology this go around that we haven't done in the past. I know, part of the takedown with Maduro, we relied upon artificial intelligence on kind of pressing all the intelligence into something that we could work with in a very short period of time, and then using it to orchestrate command and control, and the precision that we saw in that operation. Much the same is happening here in this particular operation as well.
Well, it couldn't be on display in a more timely fashion, coincidental with your new book, The New AI Cold War, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's alive and well. And unfortunately, a lot of people are just waking up to how the new world is going to come to pass. It's going to transform the workplace, our homes, certainly the media that we consume, but it's also radically changing the battlefield. We see it in Ukraine. We see it obviously with Iran. The Chinese are doing much the same. And unfortunately, it's a race. We're both working hard at developing these systems that can improve command and control, intelligence, operations as well as autonomous vehicles. And that's just something that we're going to have to adjust to in time.
When you talk about the battlefield, Colonel, during your era and what you're seeing now, I mean, it blows my mind. And I wasn't on the battlefield like you were. I was in public relations for the Marine Corps during Vietnam. But you're seeing this firsthand, and this just has to blow you away, I think.
Well, it does. A year ago, I was in the Pentagon working with allies, and they were buying our weapons. And so I had a pretty good idea as to the technologies that we were working on. And those technologies continue to improve. And they're, especially the command and control and the intelligence systems, they're just mind-blowing as to what they're capable of doing. And I think that the changes are going to just ramp up and accelerate in the coming years. So the world is changing, and we better get aboard.
Well, there's no doubt that this is coming into play, but I still believe you're still going to need some hands-on situation. I mean, we see how this partnership, on the battlefield with Israel, how that's worked out. And it seems to me that they've been more on the ground and being able to give us, some critical information here.
Well, Mossad has always been very good at deep infiltration with, real-time spies, and putting all the other pieces, the NSA piece, the satellite imagery, and other collection mechanisms. And then, of course, when you put all that together with artificial intelligence, you get instantaneous, direction and guidance in order to use the right sorts of tools, whether they're cyber or some sort of energy munition or a kinetic bomb or something like that. All of this is really rapidly changing how we think of the future battlefield. And once again, the people that are watching this more closely than most of us, of course, are in the Kremlin as well as in the PLA in Beijing. They're just fascinated by the changes. They know what the changes are, and they're trying to take account for them.
Well, it would seem that the force of our weaponry, but also, I think we're a little surprised at the force of the weaponry that Iran is still able to launch. And of course, Hezbollah, jumped in today as well, sending more missiles into Israel, right?
Yeah, well, the Iranians have been thinking about succession for a long time, and the Ayatollah, he was 86 years old. He knew that he wasn't going to live forever, and he had a number of people that were lined up to fall in place. Now, Trump said that we killed 49 in that that bombing of the facility that included the Ayatollah. Could be that was a fortunate operation in that particular case. But the weapons, they're just, the Iranians hit them all over. There were a bunch of them still in the Bekaa Valley, I would argue, that the Iranians put years ago. And Hezbollah, of course, may have the trigger on those, or somebody actually working out of Damascus in a consulate there still may. It's to be determined. Syria is not terribly stable. And of course, Lebanon and Beirut, they continue to have problems with Hezbollah, which is a proxy of the Iranians. So when you put all that together, there's a lot of uncertainty still, and we'll have to wait and see what comes out of the woodwork as we move forward in the coming days.
About a minute and a half left here, Colonel. I think Donald Trump has managed this, the expectation to the American people in such a way, and saying, look, war is messy and you can expect casualties. And so when we heard the report of, as of right now, I think we've had four casualties. This comes with war, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. No, those young people were in a tactical operations center, I believe, in Kuwait.
Yes, right.
The targeting by a ballistic missile, you're going to knock down most of them, as we've seen targeting mostly Tel Aviv and some of the Gulf Emirates. That will likely continue as they have resources to do it. I don't think this regime is going to totally collapse of its own weight. It's going to try to survive as long as it can, and then it will probably go underground, and we'll have to wait and see whether or not the replacement regime is more tolerable to what we have in mind and our mission never to become nuclear again.
Well, it's been said of what they identify this as a death cult, typical of the Nazis, for example. They go down with the ship. And so we'll see. I mean, Donald Trump has offered them, an exit where they could still live. But the nature of death cults, as you know, is, they're the last man standing. So we'll have to wait and see how this plays out, right?
Absolutely. Tragic endings, perhaps, for them, but it's going to be a new day in the Middle East.
Well, the next step. What do you expect next after this, Colonel?
Well, I'm hoping that we're going to begin to see some sort of indication of a domestic, an organic movement that maybe Mossad, the agency, and others will, further accelerate arms shipments to people on the ground, and they'll take over some of the consulates, the embassies. Maybe we'll get a split in the IRGC or the Bashi, or maybe the regular military aligns itself with an outside group that wants to run Iran in a very different direction. Those are things that I'm looking for. Yeah. I don't think that they're going to be able to, under the new leadership that is in the interim, going to be able to counter much of what they're experiencing almost around the clock now.
Yeah, we can hope for, I mean, if this is to happen, the movement and interest of a democratic, non-nuclear, peaceful-oriented Iran, this would really change the face of the Middle East altogether, right?
Yeah. I'm kind of thinking of Cyrus the Great that allowed the Jews to return to Jerusalem.
Exactly.
Well, we need a Cyrus today and it may be Trump himself that is saying, okay, there's peace that's coming to the Persian Gulf because the wicked witch of Tehran is now dead.
Yeah, you got it. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Maginnis, his new book, by the way, The New A1 Cold War, Liberty versus Tyranny. Colonel, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Coming up next, we've got from Israel, this CEO and Jerusalem Bureau Chief of Jewish News Syndicate, Alex Traiman, is going to be joining us. Alex, welcome to the show. Good to have you with us.
Bill, great to see you.
Well, give us an update there. You're there. You're hearing the alarms constantly. Israel is under attack. It always amazes me, the constitution of Israelis. I mean, you just take this in stride.
Yeah, unbelievable resilience. I think Israelis are the absolutely most resilient people. Me and my family, our kids, we've been in and out of the bomb shelters a dozen times in the last 48 hours, and everybody is well adjusted. I think the only thing that really concerns them amidst all the booms outside is, who's kicking each other in the face when they're trying to sleep in one bedroom, seven right. people, across just a couple of mattresses. But Israelis, they get the sirens and the signals on the apps that there are missiles incoming. They head calmly into their shelters. They wait for the episode to pass. They get a notice from the Home Front Command that the incident is over, and then they get back to it and they just go on their way.
Wow, it's amazing. And the thing is that you've been conditioned in such a way, and it's really pretty sophisticated on a local level, because what areas are going to be targeted. It's not like it's everybody in the entire nation. It's by quadrant and a specific area. So those people that know that, look, you're getting the alert, then it's your area that's affected. So there's more a sense of urgency there as opposed to the other people that would be unaffected, right?
That's right. I mean, it's an unbelievable amount of precise targeting and technology. I mean, at first, when there's ballistic missiles and they're being fired, everybody gets an alert that missiles have been fired, because in the first moments, you don't necessarily know exactly where the ballistic missiles are going to reach. But then as they track the trajectory, they do pinpoint target the specific areas. It's not quadrants, it's down to specific areas. Even within the city of Jerusalem, we have different alerts. So, we might not get a siren in South Jerusalem while they're getting a siren in North Jerusalem.
Alex, are you a bit surprised? I mean, I'm surprised at the level of detonation of these missiles. They seem to have increased. That Iran and Hezbollah have been able over time to up the game, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the ballistic missiles that they're firing, I mean, these are they're very sophisticated weapons. Each one is the size of a bus loaded with 5 tons of explosives, and they're shot ballistic missiles into the atmosphere, and then they're coming down greater than the speed of gravity. I mean, like Mach 6, Mach 8, they're coming down towards the earth. And Israel does have a sophisticated, multi-layered missile defense systems. But when they are firing hypersonic missiles, those seem to be able to evade some of the missile defense. If they get through the arrow and then they get down to like our more shallow defense, which is the Iron Dome, which was really developed to deal with Qassam rockets from Gaza, which are much smaller. I mean, they're basically pipes with dynamite in comparison to these ballistic missiles. If they're firing cluster bombs, so the cluster bombs can split before the Iron Dome would even reach it, and then it basically breaks into about 20 different missiles that each one has a detonation charge in it, and it can spread over a much wider area, even if there are interceptions. Meanwhile, Israel has intercepted the overwhelming majority, but we've seen probably a dozen of these have gotten through.
Alex, what is it telling you that Iran and Hezbollah are, the way they've reacted, that they're even shooting at their neighbors?
I think it's a great indication of the threat that Iran posed to the entire region and has posed to the entire region the whole time. People that thought this was only Israel's problem, well, now they see, in fact, that Israel's not the only target. They're targeting every single one of America's allies in the region. They've fired at Qatar. They fired at Kuwait. They've fired at the United Arab Emirates, at Bahrain, at Saudi Arabia, at Iraq. A missile landed in Jordan. They fired towards Cyprus. So this is a threat not just to Israel. It's a threat to the entire Middle East. Quite frankly, it's a threat to the entire free world. I mean, these people have been saying not just death to Israel, but also death to America for a long time, and they mean it.
Right. And like you said, I think most of them realized that Iran was dangerous and that it was becoming less and less tenable. And I think this is what opened up the door initially for the Abraham Accords, did it not?
Absolutely. I mean, you really like these terror proxies have been, trying to create the situation where they would be able to target and hurt Israel, and the unintended consequence was that other nations in the Middle East actually came towards Israel. And part of it was Iran. That was one component. But the second component was that the United States, specifically under Presidents Obama and Biden, proved to be a very unreliable ally for many of these Gulf states. And so they're looking around the situation. They're seeing that Iran is trying to become a regional hegemony, and the United States is not there to protect them. So they're looking around the region to say, who can we align with in order to gain protection? And they looked at Israel, which is a rising superpower in the region and is a power that needs to act for its own existential security interests. So the fact that you had a growing Iran on the one hand and a weak United States on the other, this forced these normalization agreements with the state of Israel. Fortunately, President Trump has been taking a much more strident stance towards protecting America's allies in the region. But of course, the United States, the policy swings like a pendulum. Like right now, we have the best president that Israel and the Middle East could ever have in Donald Trump, but we don't know who the president's going to be in 3 years from now.
Right. And of course, we've got midterms coming up that adds, a question, as to what's going on, because Donald Trump could be distracted with the Democrats' activity. I mean, their response about, what's going on right now. I mean, it's clear that they are disqualified to conduct a military campaign like what's being conducted right now. It's outside of their their realm of consideration. They have no concept, it seems, or intellect to even consider doing what Donald Trump is doing. For those of us who have had a military background and can see the results of this, this is genius. I mean, Donald Trump, like it or not, could end up being one of the greatest presidents America's ever had, or the world's had, for that matter.
I think that's right. And not only could Democrats not imagine doing what Donald Trump is doing, but they were doing the exact opposite. They were providing the funding, direct funding to this regime that allowed it to fund terror proxies all over the region and develop illicit nuclear weapons. But I have to be honest with you, I think the problem is not just on the Democratic side. We're seeing a growing problem on the Republican side where, Americans that I think are rightfully concerned about getting engaged in long wars, have this isolationist streak to them, are also, they're turning and saying, this isn't America's problem. This is only Israel's problem. Netanyahu is wagging the dog over here. The president of the United States, he understands American interests. And I think he understands American interests a lot better, than some of these pundits and some of these congressmen on the extreme right fringe here. He's looking at the global map. He's looking at energy. Iran was providing discounted energy to China that it's using to fuel its own global ambitions. He wants to turn that sources of Iranian oil and natural gas towards America and American allies. He's trying to set up alternative trade corridors to the Chinese Belt Road Initiative. He has the plans for an IMEC corridor, India, Middle East, European Economic Corridor. That depends on a quiet Middle East. And here, meanwhile, you have the Islamic Republic trying to threaten the supply of oil and gas through the Straits of Hormuz. You have the Houthis from Yemen, an Iranian proxy, threatening trade moving through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. This has a lot to do with America's own economic interests as well as foreign policy.
Well, as you know, Alex, results can make a huge difference. People can say whatever they want, but Donald Trump is delivering, and as this continues to play out, I like the plan. I like what I'm seeing. I think there's a lot of Americans that do so. And I think some Republicans, though they may be weak-kneed, they've always been weak-kneed, they need to be voted out. And that's up to the people to choose wiser representation because, we're seeing a military that's doing what the military should do, unlike what we've done in previous wars. And I think that it was quite prescient for the president to change the Department of Defense to the Department of War. I think that made a big statement, not only to the military inside, but outside of the United States as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Iranians didn't think that the United States could do what they're doing right now, that they were brazen enough for Khamenei to go into a meeting together with his top advisors, just thinking that there was no way the president of the United States was going to pull the trigger. And they should have gotten the hint because the president joined in during that 12-day war with Operation Midnight Hammer to bomb the Fordo nuclear reactors underground. He took out Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela, and now Iran is learning the hard way. But you know what? It's a favor. It's a favor to the whole free world that Khamenei and his advisors got together for that meeting, created the target, and that Israel wisely, together with the United States, pulled the trigger. And now they're going to turn this fanatical Islamic regime back over and Iran back over to the people, who before this Islamic revolution of 1979, they were modernizing, they were smart, they were cultured, they were pro-Western. And this is really the model of what you want a country in the Middle East to be. Unfortunately, the clerics took that country and the entire region in a different direction. And President Trump is affecting one of the biggest course corrections that we've seen in decades.
And I think the people, because of that experience, realized they don't want a monarch. They don't want a theocrat. They do want to embrace something that they had for a short period of time. And that was, as you said, a taste of Western civilization and democracy. And they're clear that they want to be non-nuclear, and they'd be a welcome partner in the Middle East, no doubt about it. Alex, can you give our audience an update on the Gaza?
Well, the Gaza is really a contained threat right now. Israel controls 53% of the Gaza Strip. This is all of the eastern section of Gaza that borders Israel. Israel also controls a corridor of several miles along the north of Gaza, which also borders Israel, as well as on the south of Gaza, which borders Egypt. So Hamas is running around in about 47% of the strip that it previously controlled. And the estimate is that they probably have about 50 to 60,000 assault rifles. And assault rifles are serious. These are the main weapons that were used on October 7th to murder 1,200 Israelis, injure thousands others, and kidnap 255 Israelis and bring them back into the Gaza Strip. However, right now, the force posture of Israel is much more serious than it was on October 6th. The readiness, the state of alert is much better. There's a huge buffer zone between where Hamas is running and Israeli population centers. So, President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu both stated that there will be zero rebuilding inside any of these areas as long as Hamas continues to be armed, and also that they're not allowed to govern the strip. So any areas that they're governing and they're running around with weapons, there's not going to be any rebuilding. So there's a carrot here which is billions of dollars in aid, and there's sticks. Israel saying that Hamas can disarm the easy way or the hard way. Now, obviously, with the situation in Iran being more acute, and now Israel opening up a second front in Lebanon now to tackle Hezbollah, Israel's just going to let the Hamas issue simmer right now, and it's fine. The Gazans can stew in their own misery that they caused themselves by the attack on October 7th. But I think that looking at what Israel is doing now in Iran and what Israel is doing in Lebanon, that the Hamas can be sure that once those two fronts close, that Israel will be back to deal with Hamas and to make sure that they disarm as they're supposed to under the Trump 20-point plan.
Right. Hamas, much like the Iranians, a death cult. They don't put down their weapons. I mean, I think that the inevitable is there, and that is that you're going to have to do what Benjamin Netanyahu said from day one, is you're just going to have to go and take them out.
Absolutely. You cannot leave them here. And people talk all the time about Israel attacking innocent Palestinians living in Gaza. Okay. And then they say that Israel's killing children. Half of the Gaza Strip is under the age of 18. Okay. And when Hamas talks about children, they're talking about even people including the age of 18. Guess what? Who do you think the Hamas fighters are that are shooting at Israel with machine guns? Exactly. They're 18-year-olds, sometimes 16-year-olds, sometimes 14-year-olds running around the Gaza Strip with machine guns. If you want to understand, the indoctrination of the Gazan citizens, just go to the Palestinian Media Watch website and click on the link where you read it, where you can see videos about the Gaza summer camps, where you have kids in first grade literally acting out scenes of October 7th. This was before October 7th, and now since October 7th, they act these scenarios out. So this is all these kids have learned from the time that they went to grade school. The soldiers tell us over and over again how many times they found copies of Mein Kampf written in Arabic inside houses, how they found weapons and tunnels inside all the houses. So it's going to take at least a generation to de-radicalize this population. But that de-radicalization cannot even begin as long as Hamas is running around with machine guns inside the Gaza Strip.
Are you having Palestinians who are in occupied Hamas, controlled by occupied Gaza, controlled by Hamas, are they coming over into the more liberated area of Gaza? Are you seeing that dynamic occur?
Not so much. I mean, it really seems right now like the areas that Israel controls is basically, for the most part, a closed military zone. The IDF is taking, anybody that's coming towards the soldiers, they see it as a direct enemy threat. Most of the Gaza Strip has been leveled. Most Gazans are living in tents and temporary structures in this western section of Gaza. It would be great for the Gazan people. It would be great for Israel if there could be a rebuilding. The president has recruited billions and billions of dollars for the rebuilding of the Gaza Strip, but it cannot happen under the leadership of Hamas. It cannot happen under the Palestinian Authority, which basically has almost the same ideology as Hamas. It can only happen under some kind of like technocratic leadership of individuals that want to normalize relations with the state of Israel and recognize that the future for the Palestinian people will be better only if they are playing nice and normalizing relations with the state of Israel.
I see. Well, in terms of in terms of the general sentiment in Israel, it's got to be, you guys got to be very hopeful about what's happening. I mean, even though missiles are coming in, is that yes, but again, hopeful for the future of the Middle East.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a strange situation, right? Israel's literally being bombarded with ballistic missiles, and the overall spirit of the Israelis is generally optimistic and very high right now. This is a battle that Israel has been waiting for the last 2.5 years. We knew from the moment that Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis were attacking that ultimately that the fight had to be taken to the head of this terror octopus as we were filing down all of the terror proxy tentacles. We thought that in June, with the 12-day war attacking the nuclear facilities and much of the ballistic missile infrastructure that Iran had, that Iran would get the hint and they would quiet down. But what did we see since that 12-day war? A race to continue rebuilding the nuclear program, figuring out alternative methods of further enriching that 60% enriched uranium, and also a race to increase the production of ballistic missiles. In that 12-day war, Israel hesitated, and the United States did not want to see a regime change. They decided to leave Khamenei and the regime in place. This time around, not only was it a decision taken to whether to ultimately topple the regime, but the decision was that the first target was going to be Khamenei and this regime. The president's being a little bit more coy, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth being a little bit more coy about regime change. The Prime Minister of Israel not being coy about it at all. I had a senior advisor to the Prime Minister tell me today that the primary goal of this operation is regime change in Iran.
That's it was reminiscent. I got to tell you, Alex, it was reminiscent for me in knowing that Israel didn't want to stop after in the 12-day war. They wanted to keep going, and the United States pulled back. And I thought, gosh, George Patton must be rolling in his grave, because it's the same thing. When he wanted to go in and go into Russia, and the military command held him back. And then, of course, here we are dealing with the problem down the road. But fortunately, we didn't have to wait a number of years. That this it seems to be resolving itself quite efficiently. As they say, precision thought, precision execution, and precision results. And please know, Alex, we continue to pray for the peace of Jerusalem every day. And pray that your family stays well and stays safe there. And as we get through these ensuing weeks, because this is not going to be a couple of days. We know it's going to take a little bit more time.
Yeah, amen. But the Israelis are hoping that this is the last battle. This is the conclusion of this 2.5-year war on 7 different fronts. And a successful war here, a successful few weeks, can literally usher in a generation of peace in Jerusalem and in the entire region. We
pray it be so. He's the CEO and Jerusalem Bureau Chief of Jewish News Syndicate. Alex Traiman has been with us. Alex, thank you so much. Shalom, my friend. Take care.
Shalom. Thank you so much, Bill.
You got it. Our next guest is going to give us a better idea as to what is next in Iran in terms of leadership. And you're going to hear more about MEK. You've heard a little bit, but not as much as I believe that we should be hearing, because MEK is the leadership in exile, for Iran, and their vision for Iran is incredible. I say incredible because considering that Iran was on the verge of westernizing, as Alex had mentioned earlier, and I think even Bob Maginnis said the same thing before the Ayatollah came in and kind of sold the people a bill of goods. And within a year and a half, everything changed, and it changed dramatically. And here they are. They've been oppressed for some 40 plus years now. So our next guest is here to give us some more information, and I want to welcome him now. Shaheen, welcome to the show. Good to have you with us.
Oh, thank you, Bill, for having me.
Well, Shaheen Gobadi. And Shaheen, I'm excited to talk to you because I think this is greatly underreported. You know, for us, you know, our show is independent. We pursue the truth no matter where it leads. We're not controlled by some outside interest. We're controlled by God Himself. And if I can say that to you, because I believe that's the most powerful thing that we have on our side, and that's the truth.
I couldn't agree with you more, and that's exactly what we are looking for. And as you said, for all sorts of political reasons, the voice of the Iranian resistance has not been heard. And I think that's the most important voice that has been ignored for way too long, with grave consequences. But I'm glad I'm in your program, and I'm glad to try to shed some light about what the future would be and what the future should be.
Yeah, help people understand here. I mean, you know, certainly already has been said, you know, the Iranian people don't want another monarchy. They've made that real clear. So forget about another monarch, certainly not another theocrat. And they want to return to something that they had a little bit of taste of, and that is democracy, right? And it is this government, I should say, you can say this government in exile, MEK related, that has that vision for Iran, right?
Absolutely, Bill. See, there is a viable democratic alternative in the form of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, which is a coalition of Iranian democratic opposition movements, which are politically, as you said very correctly, are against the Shah's regime, I mean monarchy, and also against the theocracy, and they are looking for real democracy. And they have been struggling for this for 60 years. I mean, the NCRI for 45 years, and its main member constituent organization called the People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran, and you mentioned by their acronym MEK, has been struggling for 60 years.
Yes.
Actually, the Iranian people have been struggling and endeavoring with great sacrifice to establish democracy for 120 years. And look, two forces historically have prevented them from having democracy, and that is monarchists and the mullahs, the clergy. And now Iranian people have basically rejected both of them. Actually, I think you will find it interesting. Just past Saturday, a couple of days ago, Madam Maryam Rajavi, who's chosen by the NCRI to be the president-elect for a transitional period, announced the formation of the provisional government. So actually, there is a very, very concrete steps that the NCRI would take, and there's a very clear roadmap for the transition. Madam Maryam Rajavi, many years ago, introduced a 10-point plan for the transitional period in Iran, which is very Jeffersonian. It calls for separation of government and religion. It calls for total gender equality. It calls for universal suffrage. It calls for total freedom of association, thought, individual rights. It calls for rights of ethnicities in Iran. It calls for a non-nuclear Iran, calls for mutual, amicable, amiable relationship with the rest of the world, and also calls for an abolishment of death penalty. So it's a very, very forward-looking platform and program. And this would be implemented right after the mullahs are overthrown. And it has been stipulated and committed that the transition should take no longer than 6 months. And during that period, the main task of the resistance is to set the stage for a free and fair election to choose the next National Constituent Assembly. And a new dawn basically will begin in Iran. So yes, there is a viable democratic alternative in Iran with a tremendous support inside the country and outside of Iran.
What's her support like? Help our people understand, because most people, obviously, they're more familiar here in America with the son of the Shah, and that name is there because people are just more aware of it, and they're not aware of of the new president, and they need to be.
Sure. Of course. Actually, look, Bill, people know about Reza Pahlavi, or the Shah, the son of the last deposed dictator of Iran, the Shah, simply because he's the son of a deposed dictator. He has no bases in Iran. He has no infrastructure inside Iran. He has no base outside of Iran. And he has never distanced himself from the killings, torture, and mayhem that his father inflicted upon the Iranian people through his notorious secret police known as Sawak. He never distanced himself from his father's one-party rule. And all he's hoping for is that basically he will go back to Iran, by foreign military intervention, and basically he will be to power by foreign powers, and that's obviously something that nobody wants. And all he's been basically presenting is social media bots and impressions and things like this. But this is much more, I would say, serious battle than a PR battle. It's a battle on the ground inside Iran with people putting their lives on the line. But what's very telling is that the people in Iran, in the protests, chant "Down with oppressor, beat the Shah or the supreme leader." So clearly, if one listens to the slogans coming from Iran, Iranian people vividly, unequivocally reject that concept. And also, he's very much despised by the Iranian ethnicities because of his, I would say, no-fascist approach. And he's a very divisive figure, which only benefits the mullahs, because a divisive figure like him in the opposition simply benefits the mullahs. So he doesn't even have a seat on the bench when it comes to the future of Iran. And by just mere PR or interviews here and there, you're not going to get rid of the mullahs. But to the contrary, the National Council of Resistance of Iran and its main constituent, as I said, MEK, have been battling inside Iran. The case in point is just past Monday, literally 1 week ago, the freedom fighters of the MEK, 250 of them in Tehran, in daylight, attacked the main headquarters that Ali Khamenei, who the supreme leader, who's now dead, was staying. And during the battle, 100 of these freedom fighters were killed or arrested, and 150 others basically came back safely to their bases. So that shows that the resistance we are talking about, the alternative we are talking about, has massive, massive footing inside Iran. And young people, men and women, are putting their lives on the line to make this a reality. In our view, the task of a regime change in Iran is solely upon the Iranian people and their organized resistance. This is our task, this is our mandate, and we are very much up to it.
Well, you've been the one that's been dying in the streets. I mean, I've heard numbers of 30, 50,000 Iranians have suffered at the hands of Khomeini and the IRGC. And you have, and I've said this in my early interviews with others, Shaheen, that it's as if Iran is experiencing a Patrick Henry moment of, give me liberty or give me death.
Very much so. I couldn't agree with you more, Bill. Look, in the last 45 years that the NCRI has been battling this theocracy, this blood-drenched theocracy, first Khomeini, the founder of this regime, and subsequently Ali Khamenei, more than 120,000 Iranian dissidents, overwhelming majority of them belonging to our movement, have been executed. That's a staggering number of people, 120,000 people. So actually, one should not forget that the main victims of this regime have been the Iranian people, Muslims themselves, which want to free themselves from this ruthless, bloodthirsty theocracy. So yes, you are absolutely correct. As Madam Maryam Rajavi, the president-elect of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, announced on Saturday, the death of Khamenei, we witnessed the death of this regime. This regime is simply finished. We are witnessing the end of this religious tyranny. The time for freedom, the time for popular sovereignty in Iran has arrived. And we want the world to align itself with this reality and to be on the side of the true freedom fighters in Iran.
Well, Shaheen Galbadi, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and enlightening our audience and enlightening the world of the NCRI, Iran's parliament in exile, and the election of Maryam Rajavi as president. And you are a government in waiting that can help, help westernize Iran, which is part of their vision, non-nuclear, freedom for the people there. The dawn, I believe, is coming to a new Iran, and I'm excited. I'm excited for you. I'm excited and grateful, for all the martyrs. Like you say, over 100,000 Iranians that have paid the price, that have shed their blood for the sake of freedom. And I pray that God honors that blood that they've invested for the sake of freedom, God willing. And Shaheen Gobadi, ladies and gentlemen, is a U.S.-educated nuclear engineer, a member of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, NCRI, Iran's parliament in exile. You will continue to hear more about the NCRI. And I pray also Maryam Rajavi, because I believe she is key to the future of Iran, in my humble opinion. Shaheen, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Be well.
Thanks for having me, Bill, and thanks for all your good wishes. You are absolutely correct. We have never been any closer to a free democratic Iran, but we want the world to know about us, to hear about us, to echo our voice. And I suggest people to go to the website of Madam Maryam Rajavi and to get abreast of the resistance and spread the word. And once again, thanks for having me in your show.
Thank you. Be well, Shaheen. Shaheen Gobadi, right here on Bill Martinez Live. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us and sharing a part of your day. For more information on the show, you can go to BillMartinezLive.com. May God bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you. May he be gracious unto you and give you peace. Have a great day.